Some movies don't just age well, they grow into something bigger than themselves. They stop being entertainment and start becoming memory. You don't just watch it, you inherit it. Scarface is one of those movies, but here's the thing. The Scarface we worship today, it almost never existed. Not almost looked different, almost disappeared entirely. And once you hear how close it came to falling apart, you'll never watch it the same way again. We've got 20 weird facts about Scarface you might not believe, but you want to hear everyone, because each one peels back another layer of how this film survived when it wasn't supposed to. So let's rewind, back to when Scarface almost lost its tar, back to the moment when this legend was still fragile. Number 1. Scarface was almost made without Al Pacino. It's hard to imagine Scarface without Al Pacino. That accent, that stare, that final staircase moment, moments that didn't just define a character, but an entire era of cinema. But his involvement was never guaranteed. The film was seen as too violent and too risky, even for a star like Pacino. Studio executives worried about the tone and how Tony Montana would be received. They weren't just worried about box office, they were worried about influence. Pacino fought for the role through stalled production, changing directors, and constant script criticism. In a strange way, Pacino's fight for Scarface already mirrored Tony Montana's story, and when Scarface finally hit theaters, it didn't arrive as a classic, it arrived as a problem and that problem almost ended everything before it began. Number 2. The movie failed until home video saved it. When Scarface hit theaters in 1983, it was a miss. Reviews were brutal. Critics called it excessive, vulgar, and irresponsible. Many felt it glorified the violence and drug culture instead of condemning it. In the early 80s, Hollywood still wanted crime films to pretend they had manners. Then VHS happened, and everything changed. Once Scarface reached home video, it found its real audience. Scarface wasn't meant for polite theaters. It was meant for late nights, dim lights, and repeat viewings. The kind of movie you pause, rewind, and quote the next day. That slow burn cult following eventually turned the film into a cultural giant, which explains why Hollywood keeps trying and failing to touch it again. Because once a movie becomes a myth, everyone wants a piece of it. Number 3. Hollywood keeps failing to replace Scarface. For over 2 decades, studios have tried to revisit Scarface. We've heard talks of sequels, modern reboots, reimagined, you can name it, but nothing seems to stick. Because Scarface isn't just a story, it's a time capsule. Every attempt runs into the same problem. Scarface is tied to the 1980 Reagan era, the cocaine epidemic, Miami crime culture, and Pacino's very specific energy. You can't recreate that lightning, not in the 2000s, which makes this next fact even more surprising. Ironically, Scarface itself wasn't even an original idea. That's right, before Tony Montana ever picked up a gun, Scarface already existed. Number 4. This wasn't even the first Scarface. The Scarface we all know is actually a remake. The original Scarface came out in 1932 during Hollywood's pre-code era. That version followed an Italian gangster climbing the criminal ladder in Chicago. Same theme, same warnings, same inevitable downfall. Ambition has always ended the same way, only the costumes changed. The difference is that the 1983 version turned everything up: money, violence, ego, scale. It reflected an America obsessed with excess. But one famous director didn't believe in that update, and his reaction almost derailed the movie entirely. Not because it failed, but because it went too far. Number 5. A legendary director almost took over and walked away. Sidney Lumet, director of Dog Day Afternoon and Network, was originally attached to Scarface, but once he read the script, he was out. According to Oliver Stone, Lumet hated the screenplay. He felt it was too indulgent, too vulgar, and too detached from the moral restraint he preferred in crime stories. What Lumet saw as excess, Scarface saw as honesty. His exit caused delays, rewrites, and uncertainty about the film's direction. That's not all. The MPAA also tried to censor this classic, but we'll get there in a bit, because censorship almost killed Scarface completely. Lumet quit, but a new sheriff came to town, and this new screenwriter knew exactly what he was talking about. Number 6. The script came from real experience. Oliver Stone didn't write Scarface from imagination alone. At the time, Stone was struggling with cocaine addiction. He had first-hand exposure to the drug world, the paranoia, the excess, the self-destruction. This wasn't research, it was memory, and that experience shaped the script. Tony Montana's spiral isn't stylized for fun, it's relentless because Stone knows how fast power turns poisonous. Scarface isn't a celebration of success. It's a warning disguised as spectacle. That warning just happened to look glamorous at first, which makes it even more ironic that the movie's setting wasn't what it seemed. Number 7, Scarface was shot nowhere near Miami. Despite being one of the most Miami-coded movies ever made, Scarface was largely filmed in Los Angeles and other parts of California. The real Miami was too restrictive, too expensive, and too complicated for the production, so the filmmakers recreated the city elsewhere through architecture, lighting, and atmosphere, and somehow it worked. Just like Tony's success, it looked real until you looked closer. That illusion of authenticity extended to the characters too, which brings us to one of the most talked about performances in the film. Number 8, Michelle Pfeiffer's casting sparked real controversy. Michelle Pfeiffer was not an obvious choice for Elvira Hancock. At the time, she wasn't a proven dramatic heavyweight. Most of her earlier projects hadn't performed well. Studio executives felt she looked too Hollywood for the brutal world of Scarface. Critics doubted her ability to stand opposite Pacino, but the controversy wasn't just external, because the director himself wasn't convinced. Number 9, Brian De Palma didn't want Pfeiffer at all. Brian De Palma initially resisted casting Michelle Pfeiffer as Elvira. He didn't think she fit the role. He wasn't interested in auditioning her, but once she finally got the chance, she changed minds fast. Her Elvira wasn't loud or explosive. It was cold, detached, and quietly miserable. A woman who already knew the ending, even if Tony didn't. And one moment during her audition made that crystal clear. Number 10, her final audition turned violent. During her final audition scene with Pacino, Pfeiffer accidentally cut him with a plate. It wasn't planned, it wasn't staged. She got engrossed in the role, and instead of stopping the scene, they kept going. That raw edge, danger mixed with control, sold the character perfectly. Pfeiffer didn't just survive Scarface, she claimed it, though the role came with its own personal costs. Number 11, Pfeiffer starved herself to play Elvira. To maintain Elvira's fragile, distant appearance, Pfeiffer reportedly lived on tomato soup and cigarettes during filming. She wanted Elvira to look hollow. Elvira isn't supposed to look healthy. She isn't supposed to glow. She should look like someone already fading. A woman disappearing inside wealth. It's unsettling, but effective. And despite being married to Tony Montana on screen, there's something missing between them. Number 12, Tony Montana and Elvira never truly kiss. For a couple that shares so many scenes, Tony and Elvira never share a genuine romantic kiss. Think about it. Their relationship is transactional, performative, and empty. Tony doesn't want love. He wants proof that he made it, which makes the violence feel even louder by contrast, because Scarface doesn't hold back when it comes to bloodshed. Number 13, Scarface has a John Wick level body count. Scarface racks up an unusually high number of on-screen kills, especially for its time. The final act alone is relentless. The violence is loud, chaotic, and exhausting. That's intentional. You're not meant to feel thrilled. You're meant to feel overwhelmed, just like Tony is. By the end, you don't want more power. You want it to stop. And the movie doesn't even need its title to make that point. Number 14, the word Scarface is barely in the movie. Despite being the title, the word Scarface is spoken only once in the entire film, and even then it was spoken in Spanish. Tony Montana isn't obsessed with his nickname. Everyone else is. It's a reminder that reputation isn't something you control. It's something that happens to you. And once that reputation forms, the language around it explodes. Literally. Number 15. The film is infamous for its swearing. Scarface is one of the most profanity-heavy films ever made. The language is aggressive, repetitive, and deliberate. It mirrors the character's inability to communicate without dominance. Words are weapons in Scarface, and so is everything else, including the props. Number 16. All that fake cocaine injured Pacino. The cocaine used in the film was actually powdered milk. Repeatedly snorting it caused real damage to Pacino's nasal passages. Years later, he admitted it affected his breathing long term. Method acting has consequences, and Scarface demanded full commitment, sometimes painfully, and that wasn't the only injury Pacino walked away with. Number 17. Pacino's body took more damage than just his nose. During the final shootout, Pacino suffered burns and physical injuries from explosions and pyrotechnics. The production pushed realism hard, which makes a certain someone's visit even more surprising, because someone very famous briefly stepped behind the camera. Number 18. A famed director stepped in for one key moment. Steven Spielberg visited the set during filming and ended up directing a brief scene as a favor. It's a once-in-a-lifetime piece of film history. Two legendary directors in one movie. And speaking of legendary, let's talk about Tony Montana's most iconic weapon. Number 19. Tony Montana's little friend has a sci-fi legacy. The grenade launcher Tony calls his little friend was later used by Arnold Schwarzenegger in Predator. Same weapon, different jungle, but before Scarface became iconic, it nearly didn't make it out at all. Number 20. Scarface was nearly rated X. Before it ever reached theaters, Scarface was almost locked out of mainstream cinemas entirely. The MPAA originally slapped the film with an X rating due to its extreme violence, graphic language, and unflinching drug use. Brian De Palma refused to accept it. An X rating would kill the movie before audiences even had a chance to see it. Even after multiple cuts, appeals, and re-edits, the MPAA continued to resist. Eventually, De Palma took the film to an independent review board, which finally granted Scarface an R rating. That's how Scarface survived censorship. And that's the lineup, folks. 20 weird facts about Scarface you would never have guessed. It wasn't polished or approved, and that's exactly why it survived. It failed first, then it found its people. And maybe that's why Scarface still feels personal, because it reminds us what happens when ambition outpaces meaning. If you enjoyed this rewind, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. And if you want another hit of pure nostalgia, check out our deep dive on Home Alone. You'll never look at Kevin the same way again. Until next time, don't forget to say hello to my little friend.